Welcome to Follow the Money. I'm Eric Bolling. President Obama landed in Hawaii today to begin his Christmas vacation. And when he's rested, he says he'll tackle #1 priority, jobs. But wait a minute, that sounds familiar. Take a listen.
It's a plan that begins with one word that's on everybody's mind, and it's easy to spell. J-O-B-S. Jobs. We've got to work on jobs. I am not interested in taking a wait-and-see approach when it comes to creating jobs. What I'm interested in is taking action right now to help businesses create jobs, right now. I think we are past the crisis point in the economy, but we now have to pivot and focus on jobs and growth.
Well, now he said it every year, but something always seems to pop up to grab his attention: Obamacare. Don't ask, don't tell. The DREAM Act. The unemployment rate stands at 9.8%. Is not expected to come down anytime soon. In fact, 2011 economic numbers, they look murky, to put it mildly. So while the president crows about his seasons of progress as he kicks back in the Aloha State, the rest of us are left to wonder why the president keeps promising jobs and delivering more nanny state programs. Joining me now, my all-star panel, our radio host, Garland Nixon, Guardian Angels founder Curtis Sliwa, Brad Schaefer, CEO of Infa Energy Brokers, and on remote, on the bird, we've got Mr. Peter Schiff from Euro Pacific Capital. Curtis, I'm going to start with you, my friend. There it was, 2008, candidate Obama, jobs. It's priority #1. 2009, jobs, priority #1. 2010, let's say maybe next year, we're going to get around to jobs eventually.
All right, but we know where they can be created, because now we know that companies are sitting on $2 trillion of cash because they're not sure of this president. They're not sure the direction he's going to go. They're not sure if, in fact, they should spend that money or sit on it because of the health care kicking in and a number of other initiatives. So the president is going to have to reassure business that that $2 trillion you're nesting like a hen, don't worry about it. Let the chickens hatch. Let them come home to roost and create jobs.
I'm going to get over to Garland in a second, but I want to go to you, Peter Schiff. What about it? Curtis is right. $2 trillion. Corporate coffers are full, but will they spend it? Will they hire?
Well, look, I mentioned on my own radio show yesterday that the federal government just filed a lawsuit against a company who is hiring people, but they claimed that their screening process discriminated against blacks because they were using credit scores. Look, if we have the U.S. government filing lawsuits against companies who are creating jobs, claiming they don't like the manner in which they're creating them, I mean, why would anybody create jobs? I mean, the job creators are enemy of this administration.
Oh, go ahead, Garland. What about job creators, enemies of the administration?
Well, I mean, just because the corporation can create jobs doesn't mean that we have to let them get away with murder. Certainly, we still want the government to regulate these corporations. But do we really know that they're sitting on the $2 trillion because they're afraid of what's going to happen?
Well,
in the
why
economy?
else would they? There is really no other reason. They want to invest. Corporations, Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, or Brad, let me get to you in a second. They want to put that money to use. It doesn't do them any good to earn no interest sitting in the bank.
Certainly. But, it does do them some good because they're sitting on the money. They're not losing anything.
They're not losing anything. That
doesn't do them any good.
When you're running a company, you usually look at a 5-year projection. That's usually the way we do it. The Obama discovered religion a little bit with the 2-year moratorium on the tax increase that they were planning. But a two-year window for a 5-year plan just does not help us at all.
Doesn't work out. Hang in there, guys. We got a breaking news. We have to alert right here. Making his Follow the Money debut, like how we did that, is the one, the only, the architect, Mr. Karl Rove. Carl, you listened to it. We played that little soundbite, the clip of 08. Senator Obama, 09, President Obama. Now, 2010, he says, next year, don't worry, guys, we're going to get around to jobs. What do you think?
I think he is waiting for the economy to heal itself and then take credit for it. You know, your colleague Stuart Varney had an interesting chart earlier this week that I thought was really important. He compared the unemployment rates from the bottom of the 1980 recession and the 2008 recession to recovery. Same number of months for Reagan and Obama. Same amount of time that Reagan was in office from the bottom of the recession, unemployment dropped 30%. Since Obama came in from the same point, the turn in the recession, unemployment has risen nearly 10%. Now, that says something is fundamentally flawed in the policies that this administration has followed. I do think the economy is going to recover. That's the nature of the American economy. But let's be clear about it. All this spending, all this government interference, health care reform, all the new regulations from EPA, they have retarded, not aided economic growth, and as a result, they've kept Americans on the sidelines, in the unemployment rolls, and on the welfare dole.
But you know, let me take it. Let me be devil's advocate here. Great stat. I don't want to take anything away from Stuart Varney or your chalkboard, your whiteboard there, Carl. But what you know, you could make a case that this is a more severe recession. It's going to take longer for us to come out of it.
Well, that's why I'm willing to accept that. But again, one guy goes in the right direction big time, and the other guy goes in the wrong direction, and it's over the same time frame. So you might say, well, look, it went down 30% under Reagan, and it went down 10% under Obama because it was more severe, and he needs more time to get it. But he's going in the wrong direction. This period of, you know, he's been in office now for going on 21 months, and we have seen unemployment rise over the course of that time, not decline. In fact, we know that we have you know, an even worse problem, because when we finally do begin creating more jobs each month than we need to just stay even, we've got so many people out there sitting on the sidelines who've given up looking for work that some economists are suggesting that it will be as many as 8 years before we get around to the level of employment that existed before President Obama came into office. So
no
I'm
doubt
granted that it's a difficult situation, but these policies are not driving us in the right direction.
Right, and we should point out it was unemployment was under 5%. In the late years of the Bush administration, it started to creep up, and then it exploded into the Obama administration's time. But let's talk about this for a second. It feels to me, Carl, I've been doing this a long time. I've been in markets for going on 24 years now. It feels to me that things are starting to get better. No thanks to the policies of taxing and spending and stimulus and quantitative easing, thanks to time. Father Time has just said, you know, enough is enough. American consumers going to come back. Boy, does this play in nicely to an Obama 2012 campaign. It seems like he's going to take credit for this. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think he will try and take credit for it, but again, the American people are a little bit more sophisticated than that. We work in business enterprises today. Whether we own a small business enterprise or work in a big enterprise, we know a lot more about how the economy works, and we get it from our place of employment. I like to, you know, consider Woolworths 25 years ago when you were starting out in the markets. You know, you didn't know how Woolworths was doing if you worked there unless you read the annual report. You're working at Walmart now, and you know every 15 minutes there's a computer in the back of the building that tells you how well you're doing against your targets every 15 minutes. So, you know, the worker has a better sense of what's going to make this economy go and a better sense of what really is important. So President Obama goes out there and says, hey, I'm responsible for all this good stuff. The American people have a great deal of skepticism about the recovery program, about the stimulus bill, the spending, the deficits, the debt, health care, all these things. So it's going to be a disconsolate note if the president says, we're really doing great and I'm responsible for it, when the American people say, you know what, we really don't like all these things that he's been doing. Right. But even then, let's assume it does do better. You're looking at the numbers. What are the smart economists telling you? They're upgrading their forecast for next year to maybe in the 3 to 3.5% range. I would remind you that going into the 1984 election, the last 2 quarters of 83 and the first 2 quarters of 84 were 8, 9, 9, and 8% growth.
Right, absolutely.
I don't hear anybody saying that's the kind of growth that we're going to have.
Absolutely, it's a great point, Karl Rove. You make a great point. Whatever we are, 2.6 like the last quarter, or 3.0 like the next quarter, or 2, you're 100% right. That's vastly lower than it has been in the past. Karl, before I go, can I just play a little sound clip? Last time I was hosting on Fox and Friends, you were on, and can we just show you what you did?
Hey, incidentally, before we go, Eric?
Yes, sir.
I know you're in the bad boy job today, replacing Clayton. I was using these first, man. I was using these first. And not only that, but you are not paying the royalty to the National Whiteboard Trust Fund, and they've sent me this bill. I'm sending it to you today. $1 million for unauthorized. Look, you can do the no tie thing, but you got to leave my whiteboard stick alone, man. $1 million is what you got to pay for unauthorized use. You keep it up, man, and I'm going to be taking off the tie. Okay. I'm going to be intruding on your turf, man.
I won't use the blackboard.
I'm going to be intruding on your turf.
Wow.
That is a
game
Karl.
Wow. Yeah, Karl. So I'll let you know. This is the last time I use the whiteboard. I don't know if you have returned, but it says follow the money, hearts, Karl Rove. Can I do that on the whiteboard? There we go.
Look, it's now copyrighted by the Fox High Tech Graphics Department. They were so upset with you using it. Look, they want you to use it. They just want you to give the Fox High Tech Graphics Department,
I'll tell you what I'm going to do.
Reasonable subsidy, a couple of donuts and a cup of coffee.
You said $1 million. You didn't specify which dollars. I'm going to go ahead and turn over 100 trillion Zimbabwean dollars to the foundation, Karl. You guys feel free to spend it any way you choose.
We'll buy a candy bar next time we're in Zimbabwe.
I don't even think it'll buy a candy bar, Karl. I'm going to say thank you very much to Karl Rove for being here. Hopefully not the last time either.
You bet.
All right, let me bring in my all-star panel. Garland, what's going to be the next diversion that Mr. Obama blames on not getting jobs back?
Well,
we're 3 years in here. I'm sorry, we're 2 years in, 3 different occasions. Him saying that the jobs are focus number one.
Well, I think they got to be handing out amnesia pills around here somewhere. Let's not forget, Barack Obama came in the month he came in, which he came in on the 20th of the month. They lost over 700,000 jobs. He came into jobs going out the door. I don't think the idea when Barack Obama came in was that he was going to create jobs, number one. Number two,
I think so.
Number two, I think he stopped them.
I kind of remember
he saved us. We've been saved by this man.
It was going to be create, and then it became create and save when it realized it was unquantifiable.
Government never creates jobs. We know that, whether it was a Republican president or a Democratic president. It's a question of what you do to allow business to create jobs. You want to regulate them because you don't want them to rob you blind, but you also want to give them the freedom to explore, to go out there, to try new technologies, encourage them. But I never knew a president can create jobs other than if you create government jobs.
Yeah, Peter, I'm going to get to Brad in a second, but Peter, I remember this. It was, we're going to create jobs. Stimulus, signed it away February 2 years ago, create jobs. And all of a sudden they realized that there was no way to quantify that. And they said, oh, wait a minute, did we say we meant create and save jobs? Here we are. 7 million jobs lost since Obama took office. Yet today we hear they created 900,000 jobs. Where?
Well, you remember, the government can create jobs, but they can't create purchasing power. Remember, in the Soviet Union, everybody had a job, but you waited online 8 hours to buy bread. You know, you mentioned earlier that if you're afraid President Obama is going to try to take credit for the economy. Don't worry about that. In 2012, the economy is going to be much worse than it is today, and the president's going to be trying to blame the weakening economy on the Republicans in Congress. That's what's going to happen.
I really don't. I'll go out there and on a limb and say I think it's going to be vastly better in 2012, and I think it's simply because the consumer hasn't spent, and eventually it feels like that boat is turning. Brad,
the consumer is broke, and the fact that he's spending now is part of the problem. We're digging ourselves into a deeper hole.
Consumer's always been broke, Peter. You and I both know that. With the American consumer's been
He's never
broke
been this broke,
years.
and the government is broke too.
No doubt. All right, go ahead, Brad. Wait.
Look, barring some sort of unforeseen event, the law of cycles dictates that the economy will probably do better in the next 2 years. But then Obama's faced with a very difficult decision because in 2012, the tax cuts that he lobbied for against his far-left base are going to expire. Now, people will say, hey, those tax cuts helped get us to where we are today. What's he going to do? Is he going to go, okay, is he going to go out there and say, okay, now it's time to raise taxes again? He's going to be facing the exact same debate that he had now, but now not on an off-season election, now on a presidential election.
Well,
and he's in trouble.
Don't be so sure that the
conundrum
economy is going to be. What if interest rates move up dramatically? What if oil prices are $150, $200 a barrel? Why would the economy be better?
Oh, because Peter, the only way oil moves up to $200 a barrel is because the economy is better.
No.
Come on,
What if it's because the dollar's losing value? What if it's inflation?
The last time oil was $147 is when we were hitting on all cylinders.
No, we weren't. We were a bubble. We weren't hitting on any cylinders. It was a bubble about to burst. The only reason that oil fell.
That's what the American economy is. It's one bubble to the next bubble. It was an internet bubble that became a real estate bubble.
We're out of bubbles.
Perhaps. Go ahead.
Well, the economy's been so low, it has nowhere to go but up. But I would say
it's got a long way to go down.
If I was basing everything on the Bush administration, I'd have to agree with you guys and say the government doesn't create jobs. But if I base it on the Clinton administration, I'd say the government can create 20, 25 million jobs.
It can create miserable jobs where you have nothing to show for it.
This is important, Peter. What happens if Obama now gets 2 years of pushing back the tax rates and does what he says he's going to do, starts looking at the deficit, looking at the debt starting next year, and that starts to come down? I mean, boy, that could be pretty powerful
the debt's not coming down. The debt's going up. What are you talking about?
I'm saying if he attacks it, if he goes after it. I mean, there are ways to do that.
Well, how's he going to go after it? He's going to have to cut spending. He's not cutting anything.
Bingo.
They're ignoring the deficit.
Right. So what if he does? Go ahead.
Wait, if I may say,
there's no chance of that.
We talk about amnesia. Bill Clinton is the man who said the era of big government is over. So I think clearly, you just said that Bill Clinton, as the big government president, created jobs. I think that's completely false.
You know, we're going to hit on the economy a lot more in the next segment. We have to leave this one.
You know the jobs we're going to create because people who are now retired are going to be so broke they're going to have to go work because they can't afford to live off their Social Security or their pensions anymore.
Because the
value of the money is going to be wiped out.
Save that thought right here. We're going to talk about the market, the economy coming up right next. Up next, a look ahead at 2011. If the president can focus on jobs, will the economy lend a hand? Where are we headed in the new year? Follow the money. has some answers. Fox Business Network, the power to prosper.